Welcome to episode 1 of Brotherhood, The Bonds of Men. Today, we lay the groundwork, exploring how male friendships form, the early bonds that shape us, and the moments that turn acquaintances into brothers. Let's get started. I'm Michael Maxwell, and today's episode is different. I'm not doing this one alone. I've got two of my best friends here with me, Donnie Joseph and Max Mitchell. These are the men who've walked through life with me, the ones who showed up when things got hard, the ones who tell me the truth even when I don't want to hear it. We're talking about something men don't discuss enough: real friendship, no surface level, sometimes friendship. I'm talking about the kind where you can say, I'm struggling. Nobody judges you for it. We're also diving into wake-up calls, marriage, family, and how we've counseled each other through some of the hardest moments of our lives. If you're a man over 50 or heading there, and you're wondering if you need friends like this, the answer is yes. And if you already have them, this episode is a reminder not to take them for granted. All right, let's jump in. Donnie and Max, how did we even become friends? Because I've known Donnie a lot longer. And Donnie was like the older guy who irritated me because he didn't like to hang around the younger folk at all. Donnie let you know we not the same age, we not the same size. Shoot.
I was very Caribbean.
And then Max, we met through the group Exaltation, actually introduced by your younger brother, Malik. Exaltation is the web that brings us all together, which is a music group that we all sing together. We always have fun when we get together. That's what grew Donnie and I into a relationship. He was our musician, big brother, manager, bad guy all around, telling us what to do, wrangling us and whatever. Max showed up years later as counsel for us and then became another voice.
You're such a good lawyer. I started singing. I forgot you showed up as counsel.
Yeah. Do you remember when?
So it's weird. I don't remember when I first met you. I always knew who you were. And I remember meeting Donnie because I met Donnie through Ian. And Ian said my group at the time should work with Donnie. And it was a huge mistake. We chose not to. We're a cappella. It was a mistake in any event. But that's how I met Donnie. We didn't become friends again until Exaltation. I remember the night we became friends. Mike was really early on in me starting to sing with you guys. But it was after rehearsal and Mike was upset.
Remember this. It's okay, bro. Listen, this is real talk. We're telling people like
someone that Mike had really strong feelings for, but was no longer involved with, announced that she was getting married.
Okay.
And at the time, it was a moment of vulnerability for him, admitting he was hurt by this and admitting ultimately that he was wrong and didn't have a right to feel that way.
Yeah, I remember this.
Got in the car and just was ranting and raving. And we're sitting there. I think it was you, Donnie, me, Malik, and maybe Owen. And Mike is heated. And at some point, I don't know who started laughing, but it was just like, yo, I'm going to get in the back of church and I'm going to see this. I have a grievance. Yo, it was one of the best laughs I've had in my life at his pain, which isn't a good thing to say about male friendship, us clowning him for that vulnerable moment. But I remember going home and telling my wife, this guy Mike is hilarious. And it was such a good laugh.
My goodness.
It was like the series of revenge fantasies that got crazier and crazier and more elaborate. So that's where we became friends. It was real pain. And we could see that there was genuine emotion there. And it started there, just venting with us that night. You could feel the healing as we just listened and fell out. By the end,
it was cool.
Yeah, I remember that period. I don't know if I was that kind to you because I had been through some stuff with Mike. So I was just going to be like, man, you're just going to have to feel this.
And you said those words to me on more than one occasion.
Yeah, you're going to have to feel this. But, I was in preparation for this. I just remembered a period where Exaltation needed another voice. But somebody said, I know this guy, Max, and he sings. I would assume Mike and maybe other people in the group, because you guys were connected with Grand Concourse, y'all traveled that circle more than I did. I didn't travel that circle until a bit later. But I remember Max came on board. We needed someone else, or he helped fill in one time. And it came good, or we were using him as counsel.
It was
All of
weird.
the above.
He was our lawyer.
When Max came on board, he took a load off of me because he was mature in a different kind of way for all of us. I think at the time, he was probably the most professional out of the group.
Max had his life together.
Max was doing stuff that we saw in movies.
We were still trying to figure it out.
I saw this on TV. It was the Huxtables, but this guy's actually living that life, right? And so what he did, my leadership role was pulling the music together, and everybody took different parts because we wrote and people have their different strengths. But when Max came in, he had connections to put us in spaces. As a legal person, he traveled a lot of spaces. So then there was going to ascribe leadership given to him because his thoughts and viewpoints came from a different level of strength and depth. I recall really appreciating his presence in the group, not just as a vocalist, but really just the length and breadth of his knowledge about a variety of different things.
Wow.
There was really an admiration. I don't forget, I want to jump over all your topics for my EHC.
No, it's okay. Listen, we got time.
But I'll have to share that I think an early part of my connection with Max, more from a vicarious standpoint, even though I was already married, I remember looking at him and his wife and thinking, and still to this day, there's
pressure.
They're probably, like, if I had to look around at that time, you know, when I was thinking about what marriage looks like I didn't see anybody anywhere that I wanted to be like. Max and his wife were the only people that I looked at. I was just like, that looks like something I would want to have or emulate, you know? And so I didn't really see anybody, and I'm being honest, within my family where I grew up, like within my church family that I grew up, I didn't see, and no critique to anybody. I just didn't see anything that go, wow, I want to, yeah, that looks good. I want to be like that. You know,
wow,
I didn't see anything, you know? So I don't think I've ever, you know, it's a highlight moment, but aha moment, but I don't think I've ever really, I never really said that to him. I never really said that to him.
About that.
Yeah, I never really said, and not to think like it's perfect or whatever, but I just looked at it and go, like, if I could have something like that, then that'd be good. And that's big for me because besides my grandparents, I didn't grow up with a template. Grew up with a single mom. Statistically, I really shouldn't be married. There's not a lot of inclinations for me to go that route. So it really was seeing people like him and other people that gave me the inkling that this is something I could do. Never said that to you before, but that was something vicariously I thought and held to myself, and it was one of the things. So there was a respect. It wasn't just friendship, but it was really a huge respect for you and your wife.
Here's the thing I want to pop in here. With friendships like ours, they build gradually over time. They don't necessarily start with a big moment.
Right.
But there's always a point where a shift happens. I'm a little curious. I'll ask Max, when do you remember that shift happening? Was it the car?
I think the car was when it was like, this isn't a bandmate, or this is my guy, it's my friend.
Okay.
But I think you're right. There were, you know, it shifted long before. I think that by the time there are a couple of moments. There were moments where it's like, okay, this is my guy. I trust him. This is my friend. This is my man. At the same time, it's funny. I think about it as I was thinking about this call on a completely different topic. I think that you guys being there for me in tough times was great. It was one of the most important, one of the things I needed most. But I also think that had a lot to do with us breaking up as a group. We sang at a church right after we'd had that loss. And I remember at the time, of course, it was going great. And at some point, I just fell apart, just completely blubbering like they took my dog. And I remember being so embarrassed. I remember Mike came and put his arm around my shoulder. And I mean, Donnie looking at me with like real concern. And then after he's like, we shouldn't have done that. You weren't ready. That was a grown man moment. I don't think I'm an actual West Indian, although technically that's where all my genetics are. But I don't think within a few generations that would have been how we would have handled it. I think we would have had to suck it up and move forward. But you guys were so not that. From the moment that happened, I've always carried it with me. And I think that moment, like us stumbling out of the gate, was sort of the beginning of the end of the group in some ways. It wasn't just that we matured. You know, like marriages sometimes don't survive a trauma. We had
Right.
this shared traumatic
Right.
moment where when we got together, it was like, you know what? We just need to heal each other. It went from being about the music to about the men, which was fine, but it's always meant that we get together now and it's about love and not producing. Even though there's some dope pens in this group, you
Right.
know,
Right.
was I feel I always carried a little bit of guilt about that. That it was like, hey, we need to take a break. We need to step back.
Yeah.
Like it was around that time that Nev left. It was
Right.
everybody's like, you know what? Life is here. We need to make different moves.
Right. So I think,
Okay.
yeah, I'm glad you shared that because thinking of the moments, because even before Max came, I mean, I always had didn't always like it because some of these guys are really younger. In Caribbean terms, we shouldn't be friends. If you're like 18, 19, and you're friends with somebody 15, people look at you like you're crazy, right? But we were friends. That was a moment where I felt like it got really deep. Similar to what you said, Max, I don't think I vocalized it, but I carried a lot of guilt in that moment because I remember we put so much, this was one of those last moments where I just like, this is it, man. You only get one chance to be out there. You're going to be too old trying to sing. Turn my mom's bedroom closet into a studio. I mean, we were there all night. And so I remember after that moment, I think you are right in terms of how you defined it, whether people said it or not. It was a moment that brought us very close together, but it was also a reframing of what's really important. We were looking at grown adult stuff. It was that weird juxtaposition between some youthful ambition, nothing was wrong with it, but then realizing what sacrifices are you willing to make, right? That was a moment that our relationship and our friendship, to me, at that moment, became more important than the music. Then something happened recently that reminded me of that. Somebody died this year. That was a close friend of mine. And Max said, I don't know where lunch is, but I'll meet you up there. I could meet you up in White Plains if we could just sit down and talk. It was just enough for him to say that and know he was willing to do that. It let me know I'm not alone in my experience. And it let me know that's my people. If anything is going on, I need somebody to talk to. And then that happened with Mike. Mike has different iterations as well. And this iteration, Mike was a motivational speaker. He was doing early morning walks, 6:00 in the morning. And I needed somebody to talk me off a ledge. I'd reach out to somebody else before and they were pulling out scriptures. And I was like, I don't want to hear this right now. What I heard, but the scriptures were weaponized. So what I really heard was not scripture. What I heard was judgment. I reached out to Mike and Mike was the only person that could set me straight. Here I am today. Knew at that moment, the only person that I could talk to was Mike.
I can't pinpoint the moments, but I know the moments. It happens so quietly. But then you realize by some action that you're in that space. For Max, I definitely remember that rehearsal when we were recording and he got that phone call and he left. And I left immediately after. I don't know how many lights I ran. I'm just like, I'm trying to get to his house at the same time he does. In my head, that's my guy. And his family is my family. I would stab somebody and go to jail to protect his family. That's how I knew that. I'm running lights. I don't care what happens. With Donnie, it happened a lot. I knew a moment it happened with Donnie when you're getting married. I'll say this because I ain't got no shame. It is what it is.
I know what you're going to say.
I love this dude. That's my brother. Remember, I said to him, I got the keys to the car. We can dip and you can blame me. I don't get it, but I wanted to protect you. This doesn't make sense to me. I was willing to be roasted. People put energy and resource and all that stuff into that.
Right.
And I'm like, I was willing to blow that up and take the whole blame for it. I wanted you to be okay. That's my boy. I kind of knew from then on. Yeah, those are the moments for me where I knew like Max is important to me and Max's family and Donnie's important to me and Donnie's family above everything and everyone else. I'm here today because of you too, if I'm going to be honest, because you both counseled me along the years. I am thriving right now and life is great. I can't even imagine the chaos it would have been without you guys being like guardrails along the path, along the years.
Part of it was also just investing time and emotional energy and affection in someone that you knew when it came back, it was going to come back. It was a long-term bet on a human that I care about. Once the shenanigans stopped, we went to sing at a church once, and I was there with my wife, and Mike was there with one of the women he was seeing at the time. We were praying before we went out. We were holding hands to pray.
I was seeing her exclusively at the time.
Yes,
I wasn't in the streets.
Well, no one would be offended because no one knows the when. I didn't say the church or the when. So I think I was wrong. It might have been exclusive at the time, but I was hoping.
It was.
You know what? Based on your response, based on what the rest of the story, that's true. Because I felt your hands stiffen up. I cracked my open to peek to see, see what's going on. Someone who was not the woman we were with was in inappropriate contact during the prayer. And I remember just saying, I remember like, yo, B, there's things that happen to Mike that just don't happen to
anybody else.
It's like, if the shenanigans could stop. I remember I like cracked my eye open. I'm like, what is it? What's going on? I felt bad for you.
There have been many times when I have created my chaos, and other times stuff just came to me.
And I remember at the time just being like, and that's just a funny story about it. But it was, in all honesty, there was just so much there. Anyone who truly loves you and was around you could really see how talented you were in so many different ways. It's not a race. You're here where you need to be. I couldn't be happier about it.
Thank you, guys.
Husband, father, and entrepreneur.
All of that. Definitely was that early, but feels different now. It wears different now. Things looking good or things coming towards me and then moving away. I think what did a lot of that was the undiagnosed. One of the issues is the follow through, organization, execution, time management. These are all the things you need. Whatever your goal is in life, you need to have those things together. You need to be able to organize yourself, manage your time. So are you able to plan? Are you able to manage your time? And are you organized? And those things did not exist for me. As strong as the talent was and as strong as my ability to intuit a lot of things, I still did not have the tools needed for the follow through and the follow up.
Yeah.
And I think getting this diagnosis of ADHD now kind of like put a light bulb on everything else in a good way, because it gave me grace. When I got diagnosed, it made sense. Like everything makes sense, even the missed opportunities, the missteps and all that kind of stuff. So I would ask, if at all, how did my diagnosis change how you guys saw me, if it did at all? Or did it like confirm?
Well, it's funny because I think when I found out, proceeded the conversation with another aspect that's part of ADHD. And we know now that there's relatively like 3 types that we look at, right? There's the predominantly hyperactivity, inattentive type, and the mixed type, which has features of both, but then also has, the co-occurring anxiety and depression. And so you start to speak about one aspect of those that was there. And then you then added the ADHD part. I was close enough to you to know that I know Mike has these iterations of stuff that you've done where you were successful, hyper-focused. And I guess because of our friendship, maybe my clinical lens wasn't there because I'm your friend. He usually comes up with an idea like, yeah, man, I ain't doing that. That's done with. And then on to the next thing. But when I heard that, I was like, I think I saw myself. Yours is a little different than mine, more intense in different ways. I think the only thing that I'm really hyper-focused in is music. It's probably the thing that I could do all night and not get tired and not get fatigued. And so I felt more of a kinship to you. And I could identify more. I think in my mind, I was like, okay, good. I'm glad he knows this, what he's going to do with it. And before I could even have that thought, you were already in action mode. You already had appointments. You didn't spend too much time lamenting. It was just like, whoa.
I had answers. I was ready to go.
I took a test. I'm going for exams. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And I was just like, wow. Some people hear that, and of course, since the pandemic, mental health has also been a stigma. Mental health among Black people is one level of stigma. Mental health among Afro-Caribbean people is another level of stigma. For you to kind of skip over all of that and be in action mode and taking care of it, I was like, good. And I think I love a podcast I watched of yours earlier today where you talked about grace. And this is why I know you're a genius. Max, you should check it out. I heard Mike break down a strategy, a way of framing something and thinking about how to help someone who's struggling with messing up throughout their day, which is me. You know, passionate one day about how well I did at a presentation, and everybody's just like, oh my God, you should be running a company. And then just like defeated the next day. So Mike spoke about grace, about really not beating yourself up, and also using intersection of that part, mental health, ADHD, and parenting. And the way how you framed it, just hearing you talked about it, allowed myself to be easy on myself. Even just going to work today, do things in a way that was less stressful. Every day I do a to-do list, about 10 things on average. Sometimes I get to 4. I usually beat myself up about the 6. Today I got you the list, and I think I hit almost everything. I did everything extra, but I didn't have that anxiousness nor lengthy distraction. And that was just from just to listen to your conversation. So that's your genius. That's that's the genius Max talks about. I hear you speak and I'm just like, man, this guy's going to beat me at my own game. He's in my lane and beat me.
I do realize there sometimes I've needed some external motivation and sort of responsibility partner. I got a nutritionist. So that turned into a whole bunch of other conversations. She's like, I've got a whole brand of food. I got the meals coming. She put me onto this app where you take photos of your food all the time. It's like, look at me, I'm eating. But
they are not paying me for this. Scan everything in the grocery store before it gets into my cart. That's how I roll now.
I used to call Nourish. And I'm like, oh no, I was about to lie and say it was my first day. It says, how many days in am I? It's a 2-day streak.
There you go. Look at that.
But it has been really helpful, especially on the hydration goals. The nature of my work requires me to I do have like some funky hours sometimes, or early morning calls, or I do some like international stuff. The job requires a certain kind of focus. Sometimes it's hard to do it's hard to be that focused that. So I drink a lot of coffee, which has one of my medications. It has a diuretic effect, as does the coffee. So getting hydrated has been a challenge. She recommended that I get 98 ounces of water, something crazy that is just like my back teeth are always floating.
You almost put your office next to the bathroom.
I slosh when I walk. If I shake now, you can hear my bladder.
That's just the beginning. In our next episode, we'll see how these friendships grow and evolve through life's challenges and changes. Stay with us for Growing Together.